Hi everyone, Eva the dietitian and science ambassador here from Tetragen, and today we will be talking about a simple 5-letter word that causes a lot of confusion: sugar. So what is sugar and what happens in our bodies when we eat it, and why can it cause so much confusion? So by definition, sugar is a sweet crystalline substance obtained from various plants, especially sugar beet and sugar cane. And it consists essentially of sucrose, and it's used as a sweetener in food and drink. Basically, we extract the natural sugar from plants and we add it to our food and our drink to make it taste better by adding sweetness. This type of sugar is known as added sugar, and this one is one that we should have as little of as possible due to many of its adverse effects on health, which I'll discuss in more detail shortly. So if we want to have as little as possible of the added sugar, we need to know where it's found in. And it's found in all the sweet things like fizzy drinks, flavoured coffees, cakes, biscuits, chocolate spreads, gummies and jellies. And if you want to check how much added sugar is in a product, you can check on the nutrition label. So if you go to the label, underneath the carbohydrates section, there will be an added sugar section. And if the percentage daily value, or the percentage DV, is over 20% for that serving of the food, then that means it has a high amount of added sugar, and if it's less than 5%, that means it has a low amount of added sugar. So what a lot of people try to do when they try to cut down sugar is they replace it with sugar alternatives like honey, maple syrup, agave syrup and coconut sugar, because they're seen as natural alternatives to sugar and they're seen as more healthy. And this isn't necessarily true, because they're also types of added sugar, so those alternatives would be classed as added sugar too, because they have a very similar effect in the body when we consume them. In addition to added sugars that should be avoided if possible, we have refined carbohydrates such as white rice, white bread and white pasta, which should also be avoided, and this is because they have a very similar effect in the body as added sugars. So let's talk about what happens in the body when we eat added sugars or refined carbohydrates. When we consume the sugars or the carbohydrates, the sugars enter our blood, and then there's cells in the pancreas called beta cells which release a hormone called insulin, and it's insulin's job to transport the sugars in the blood into the liver and into the muscles. And because there's no fibre in the added sugars or refined carbohydrates to slow down the absorption of the sugar, this sugar is absorbed very quickly, and this causes us to have a very quick surge of energy. And unfortunately, this surge of energy is followed by a crash, maybe an hour later, and we can feel sluggish, tired, it might be hard for us to concentrate or be productive. So you might think, so what if all that happens is that I feel a little bit tired an hour after eating the added sugars? Well, unfortunately, there is a lot more harm that is done. So if you think about it, we consume sugar and refined carbohydrates pretty much almost every day, whether it's a slice of white bread with jam, or a chocolate bar for dessert, or a piece of cake with your coffee. But when we consume these foods every day, the beta cells in the pancreas become overworked, and over the course of our lifetime they get tired and worn out and don't work as well as they should. And when this happens, we call this diabetes type 2. So that's one of the adverse health effects of added sugar and refined carbohydrates. And added sugars can also prevent the hormone leptin from doing its job properly. So leptin is a hormone that's released from our fat cells, which sends a signal to the brain telling us that we have had enough food and that we can stop eating. But if leptin doesn't work as well as it should, then this can lead to overeating, because you don't know when to stop eating, and as a result this can cause weight gain. So this is another adverse health effect of eating too much added sugars. And if those adverse health effects aren't bad enough, we know that sugar can also be addicting. So eating sugar causes us to release dopamine in our bodies, and this is why the craving for sugar can be so strong at times. So those were just a few of the side effects of sugar. There are many more, but I won't go into them in this video. On the upside, there are sugars that we should consume, and these are sugars that are found naturally in foods. For example, there is lactose present in milk products, which contain lots of protein and calcium, so shouldn't be avoided. There are sugars like fructose and glucose that are found in fruit. Fruit contains things like fibre, minerals, vitamins and water. They're really good for us, and those sugars should not be avoided either. To conclude, try to have as little added sugars and refined carbohydrates as possible, and aim to have unprocessed whole foods wherever possible. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.